It took me around 4 hours and 36 minutes to beat the boss, Margit the Fell Omen. That sounds like an agonizingly long time to bash my head against a wall for a boss, but here's how my struggle actually happened. I spent 1 hour and 16 minutes trying to beat it without grinding, which eventually led me to abandon it and try my hand at being the tree sentinel instead. I spotted this boss when I first started the game, and in order to earn runes to level up, I knew I needed to beat something substantial. This boss was much easier, a little annoying, but much more doable. This boss took me only 21 minutes to beat. With the runes collected from that boss's corpse, I upgraded my vigor so I could tank more of the magic sword attacks that damage you even when blocking. I then fought against Margit for 27 more minutes with my slightly larger health bar and found out this boss was still too much to handle. After that, I started a voyage to gather experience, refine my skills, and just have some actual fun again. Through this journey, I learned that Torrent takes fall damage despite being a magical double jumping horse, fought and beat demi-human chiefs with the help of an online stranger, encountered Mr. Krabs, beat a minor dungeon and a Stone Digger troll boss, and killed another weaker troll just for the experience. With a little over an hour of exploring, I gained enough experience to upgrade my vigor again, as well as my dexterity. I finally felt confident to beat this boss, and while it took me like an hour and 8 minutes to beat him finally, it felt pretty great to claim victory. So really I spent around 2 hours and 51 minutes to actually win against him. Margit was obviously a gatekeeper boss, as this boss was vastly harder than every other boss or enemy prior to him along the main route, at least in my experience. Since it took me so long to win against this boss, I should really hate him, but it only really made me think about whether or not this boss was fair or not, and ultimately, I think it is. This is mainly because this boss uses a powerful teaching tool for the player. The bosses that I fought up until his defeat are mostly pretty quick and nimble, but the duration that they use their speed to overwhelm you was never too long, and attacks wouldn't put you in too much trouble even if your stamina bar ran out while defending. Also, the sizes of the bosses correlate with the speed of their attacks. Sometimes. I find this type of design philosophy to have a much stronger presence than it did in the only other FromSoft game I played, Demon's Souls. In that game, the big enemies move expectedly slow, and the short enemies of course move faster. In Elden Ring, it can sometimes feel like there's little rhyme or reason as to how fast the enemies move, and psychologically, Margit played right into this uncertainty perfectly. This dude is obviously taller than the player, but at the same time, he's not even as massive as one of the troll bosses. His middle of the road sizing plays into his outfit as well. He wears a tattered cloak that obscures his surprisingly frail looking body, which could make you think he wouldn't be so tough. Then, you notice that he has an abomination of a tail that completely clashes against the rest of his character design. The dark and almost rocky looking segment of the tail also contrasts against the tip, which kinda looks like a crab claw. Even his weapon doesn't look especially dangerous, as it resembles a rocky cane. Everything about this design upon first glance is tailored towards making him as surprising of a boss as possible. And finally, when I fought him for the first time, I was surprised as hell at how nimble he was. Like, he actually kinda moves like a ninja at times. The magical weapons he materializes out of nowhere were definitely surprising to see, and the fact that they all damage you even when blocking was shocking to me. This completely blew my mind. Up until this point, I was content to just block attacks and use a cool looking counter to get back at all of the enemies. Now there was a boss that required me to really dodge, and most of his attacks move so fast, dodging seemed almost pointless. This boss combos you for what feels like forever as well, so I could dodge into another attack on accident. Eventually, after chipping around half of the boss's health away, he pulls out a hammer, and this had me stupefied, and very dead. It doesn't help that in his second phase, he has access to even more combos that are even more deadly to block, as it's pretty much guaranteed that he will break your guard. All these attacks were overwhelming even hours in, so even the most well-telegraphed and slow attacks could trip me up with ease. However, after so much practice, I of course defeated it, and this is because this boss is such a powerful teaching tool for the game. This boss showed me that even with hours of exploring and leveling up, that won't mean much for a legitimately tough enemy in this game. Upgrading my health and stamina, and realizing again that my number of healing flasks can be raised definitely helped my chances, but the skills that this boss brutally teaches the player were what made beating it possible in the first place for me. Minimizing damage and stamina loss through dodging was something that this boss showcased to me. I really did not think that dodging would be much better in the long run for my stamina economy, but it really was compared to tanking so many attacks. I realized as well that poking the boss whenever I had the chance was way more optimal than the big unsafe swings that I would try to take before on bosses, and would lead to less damage than with just 2 solid quick jabs. And casting spirits to distract bosses also became way more valid in my eyes. Like really, this boss changed the way I approach the game's bosses and just in general. Overall, I can safely say this boss was a fair inclusion in the game, and a welcome one at that. This boss ultimately made me appreciate this game much more, even after 4 hours and 36 minutes of fun and pain.
A few moments later.